Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we're looking at player props here on Thursday in the NBA. Not quite as much to choose from as the lovely 11-game slate that we had yesterday that helped us go 3-1 here on the player props that we had on Wednesday night. Do have 5 games, though, with a couple decent matchups, so we've got some good looks here for you guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into your first player prop here for Thursday night, Nate.
Give me James Harden over 8.5 assists for plus money, plus 114, and the double-double is plus 130 or better, I think, at different books. I think he's certainly capable of getting the 10 dimes here. I mean, he just had 11 on 23 minutes in just a historic blowout against the Nets C team there.
Right.
So he's clearly ready to go here on the second leg of a back-to-back. You look at recent back-to-backs were much tougher spots for the Clippers, and they got absolutely crushed in San Antonio, in Boston. So he doesn't have very impressive numbers. He also has poor shooting numbers on the back-to-backs, but still averages 8.5 assists a game. And, I mean, recently with Kawhi in and out of the lineup, he's been even more of a facilitator, up to 53 passes a game, 16 potential assists, and 10 dimes a game in his last 5. Against Portland this year, it landed on the 8.5 on average. Only 45 passes, though, and a few secondary assists. So just indicating that there's room for growth there. But as always with Harden, we're reading between the lines. We're on double D watch. We're thinking about what kind of bars are there in Portland that might distract him. Apparently not much for nightlife, because his last 5 trips to Portland, dating all the way back to 2020, 24 a game, 14.5 assists per game, double-double in all 5. So both games against the Blazers have been at home this year for the Clips. And so now he's going to Portland, and probably more importantly, if you're talking about X's and O's here, Donovan Clingan out, Robert Williams doubtful. So it's just Eaton against Ayton. I mean, the Blazers were dead last against shots at the rim with Ayton, mostly getting all the time in December. In general, they are one of the worst teams guarding the rim in general. Highest effective field goal percentage at home on the season. So that's going to be both rim shots and threes. And no, I'm not talking about that kind of rim shot. But their last 5, 122 defensive rating, 36 assists to the freaking Nets, the aforementioned Nets who just scored 60 against the Clippers. This Blazers defense with Scoot at the point of attack is to be trifled with. They've allowed 10 plus potential assists to 9 players in 5 games and just given it all up to the point guard, 11 assists per game. So really like targeting Harden here on the back-to-back after he barely played.
Bravo, man. Hang that in the Louvre. Everything, that segment, producer and editor Dan and Jack, if we could go ahead and hang that in the Louvre and clip that for Nate, that was absolutely beautiful. First of all, I do want to say no shade to the Portland nightlife. There's actually some pretty fun extracurricular activities that you can get involved in Portland. I'll just say that. I don't know if that's relevant. Maybe that's not James Harden's style. You mentioned the DD in the same breath as the strip clubs in Portland. It was Mozart. So no notes on that. I will say one note, plus 130 for the double-double. While that works phonetically with the sort of, and in the vein of everything you just said about James Harden, the 10 plus assists is plus 180 in some places. So just like they do weird stuff like that sometimes because they probably are assuming, he can get the rebounds too. So if we give him the double-double, he's got more outs with the category of prop that he gets 10 for. But the assist specifically, if that's what you're targeting as the thing for the DD, then I think you take the extra like 5 cents or 50 cents rather on the dollar there. But either way, I'm with you on Harden. What a game last night. What a game. It was 102-61 at one point. But Tyus Jones, next game up here, going Phoenix, Washington. We got maybe not a backup, might be in the starting lineup in this game. We're going to have Brad Beal out, but we have seen Tyus in and out. Royce O'Neal will probably be out there, which means Tyus Jones is back in command of the second unit. Not with Brad Beal not even in the game. So it's even better, right? Because it was Brad Beal starting, Tyus Jones is the backup point guard. He comes in, plays alongside Book and KD in the first rotation and is getting a lot of assists in that lineup. Well, now it's just going to be him with the others, with Grayson Allen around him, I guess maybe some Iguodaro, depending on how things go. I mean, they got Nick Richards now at Phoenix. They just cannot wait to get Mason Plumlee on the bench. I'll tell you that. Nick Richards will be in there immediately as soon as he's up to speed. But until that time, like I still think Tyus Jones is going to get a few more minutes as a result of also this center situation where they're fine running more small with like Iguodaro and KD and then just like three guards essentially, and that works a lot. Maybe they need Ryan Dunn out there, but I do expect 30 to 35 minutes for Tyus in this game. If the extra like 32 should be what we project him for, there could be a little 2 to 3 minute bump in there because this game could be over pretty quickly against Washington in DC, where we expect former DMV native Kevin Durant to put in some work tonight. But the stuff is low for Tyus because Brad Beal is still questionable. So that's why I just jumped on it right now. You can actually get 16 and a half points and assists on like Bet Rivers, I believe. Maybe there's one or two other books. For the most part, it's pretty good juice for 17 and a half points and assists combined, minus 109. I don't really want to have to figure it out with him with the points and assists. There are some nights where he's shooting more. There are some nights where he's diming up more. I will say he's diming up a lot without Brad Beal, but that was also before this surge for Devin Booker, where he's just like, I got this point guard stuff, don't worry. So whenever he's got minutes on the floor with Book, it's going to scare me from that a little bit. But I will say, even without Beal on the court, when he's on court with Durant and Booker for Tyus Jones, he's looking at about 7.6 assists per 36 minutes and 14 points per 36. And that's with those guys on the floor. There's going to be plenty of minutes tonight where he's the leader of the backup unit without them. And if you take all three guys off the floor this season and you've got just Tyus Jones on there with any combination of folks, he's looking at about 9.5 assists per 36 minutes alongside 16 points per 36. So he should get a solid 8 to 10 minutes with the backups, maybe one or D Book and KD on the floor. But in the 5 games that he's played without Beal, with Book and KD, 32 minutes a game, 23 PA over in 4 of those 5 this season. So I just think this is a tailor-made spot against a obviously awful defense for him to be able to get his.
Yeah. I mean, awful defense, but I think both of us would rather take the plus 11 than try to get the Suns to cover anything, which is why we feel safe about taking 2 starters or main cogs here, because I am going with Durant. And after some careful thought, I have removed the points and just said 11 and a half rebounds and assists. Because look, it's up damn near, it's 28 with the juice up for the points. And if he gets those, then you're still going to need the RA. Or, if he scores 30, you're still going to need damn near 12 RA, which is what we're talking about here. So you might as well just bet plus 115 for him to score 30 if you think, or you can get plus 130 for him to hit 3 threes, because the Wizards are particularly awful guarding above the break threes. If Durant decides he wants to fire away, like you said, this is a homecoming spot. Then he certainly is capable of hitting a bunch of threes. He actually went 3 for 3 from deep his last trip to Washington. He's barely played there in the last 2 years. I mean, he's played once, and that was also Beal's revenge spot. So Beal had 43 points on 35% usage. KD only took 9 shots, 17% usage. It was a blowout win. So he did not have to do any heavy lifting. The Suns haven't blown out anybody. Like November 26th was the last time when they blew out the Lakers of all teams that Durant was actually able to take a seat down the stretch. Otherwise, he's basically at 36 minutes unless they get blown out. And I don't think the Wizards are capable of that. So I think you can lock him into 36 minutes here, which is more than he's played recently. In his last 5 trips to the hometown, averaged about 30, about 6.6 and 6.4 with 31% usage. And that was with powerhouse teams, the Nets and Warriors. So, of course, those games were not as close. And without Beal, who, you mentioned not going to play, he's averaging 2 more points, 1 more assist since the start of last season here with the Suns. But the Wiz, more importantly, are just giving up the peripheral stats. Of course, they give up points, but it's because their pace and just poor overall defense. They actually allow the most rebounds, assists in general this season, and that's up to 93 in the past week. That's 7 more than any other team. Even the Chicago Bulls with their absurd pace, and they're 4th in pace on the season. KD in his last 8 against teams that are top 12 in pace. He is 6-2 to this number in terms of the rebounds and assists. So that's where I landed. It's just saying more opportunities, more stats for Durant. I think he's very needed as a rebounder given the Suns' poor situation at center. And he's more of a facilitator without Beal, even though Book has taken on that main road. There's just going to be so many opportunities for easy facilitating against this poor Wizards defense that I think he can get the assist, which is plus money for 5 on its own.
Yep. Yep, I'm with that. Yeah, the 28 and a half scares me. Like I've kind of been targeting under 26, 27 and a half points for KD pretty consistently because he kind of hits a wall essentially at some point in the game where he's averaging like 13 a game in the first half and a slight downtick in the second half. Not much. He's still up at about 24, 25 a game. So it's not like it's a huge downtick, but just sort of seems to sort of not get over the points very, very consistently. And this is inflated for a reason. And I do think there's something to the idea that like a damn near 20-year vet or however long he's been in the league now, coming back home. How many times has he done this? What is this, a homecoming? Like he's excited. I mean, yeah, you get excited, but like the point 28 and a half is just an absurd number based on the principle that he grew up in the area where he's playing today. That's all that I'm saying. So let's go ahead and close it out with Nemhard here and go over 12 and a half points. This ain't going to be 12 and a half. By the time this game tips off, I got to imagine this gets up to 14 and a half because Halliburton will. I'm hyper confident that he'll be ruled out. So that's why I like hitting Nemhard now at 12 and a half points, and don't bother waiting. You can grab the assists if you want. He had 9 dimes in this last game. It was Halliburton's first game out against the Cavs in this last one. Really tough matchup. Nemhard ended on 12. Didn't get the 12 and a half points he needed in the last game either. Had 8 in the first quarter and then slowed down a ton against a very good Cavs defense, as we know, who was geared up to win in a revenge matchup after losing the first of the home and home for that matchup here. But now we're talking about Detroit, which is a good defense. I mean, I'm not going to say it's anything worse than like a good defense, slightly above average, let's say. But against the point guard, not so much. This is where they're weakest. And like, there's probably something to the idea that Cade is their attack, the head of the defense, right? And really that's not going to cut it because he's big. He's not a horrible defender. It just does not strike me as the guy that's putting out the most effort. So as a result, this team is giving up the eighth most points to the primary ball handler on the other team. They're giving up the 8th most points in the pick and roll play specifically. And they are giving up the 7th most above the break threes in the last 10 and the last 15. So like pretty much for the season, that's where they're at, that's the weakest point of their defense. So love taking Nemhard in that standpoint. He's taking most of his shots above the break or in that little mid-range / push shot, if you will. Floater is the word I'm looking for there for Nemby as well, which is where you can beat this Pistons defense. Jalen Duren will be busy with Miles Turner. Maybe he's looking to stay down low a little bit more with Pascal. But if you want to add the assists, I'm fine with it. It's like 5.5 right now. You can get Nemhard PA at like 18.5 or so. But I think the points are going to be there against Detroit, who's not giving up a ton of assists to point guards. They are limiting the ball movement. They do play a lot of the drop D and sort of limit the catch and shoot stuff. So it's going to be guys like Nemhard and Pascal going one-on-one in ISO and stuff like that, as opposed to maybe a bit more of the passing around the perimeter for the catch and shoot stuff for this team. And they will be looking to get into transition as well, which is also where you can bank on Nemhard having a pretty good game. So let's go with Andrew Nemhard tonight over 12.5 points.
Yeah, digging deeper than just the game log for sure, because you're looking at 10 points, 9 assists last time out, right? So you'd think if you're just on a knee jerk there being like, I'd rather have the assists or I'd rather combo them. But Josh broke it down, like where he's able to score and where Detroit gives it up makes complete sense. And with the elevated usage with those guys out, could definitely see him scoring. I mean, I think he can still combo it just because the ball's in his hands so much and the Pacers will play off him. And 5.5 is pretty low. But yeah, the points could definitely carry you over this. I'm surprised it's lower than it was against the Cleveland Cavaliers last time out. With Mathurin out, right? So, I mean, it's a good value pick here to just go right back to Nemhard, who I was on the fence about and did not take last time against Cleveland. I mean, he still came up on the hook, right? It's just short. So, but now it's a little lower.
But it would have been more painful than your normal hook because he had 8 points in the first quarter, and that would have crushed you if you saw that later. Like, cool, you couldn't get 5 more, huh? So I'm happy I stayed away from it too, but this is a nice spot for him. So as long as he is awake after the first quarter and is still playing basketball, I think we're in a good spot. But that's all the time we have for you in Play It Props. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page. Check out the Best Bets episode with some sides and totals looks for you guys as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.